Asia Smith, and this is my presentation for my final social problems portfolio. The topic I chose to create this portfolio on is the topic of abortion. Abortion is the medical and surgical termination of a pregnancy, typically performed in the early stages, but sometimes later due to health risk and personal circumstances. It is a subject that intersects the medicine, law, ethics, and social justice, making it both complex and deeply personal. I decided to go ahead and complete this portfolio using this topic because it's something that is very important. And after Roe versus Wade was overturned in 2022, it has left many women in fear and uncertain on how to proceed if a circumstance comes up where they, may potentially need an abortion. It raises important questions about healthcare, personal rights, morality, and social justice. The ability to choose whether or not to carry a pregnancy has a profound effect and impact on a person's future, including their education, career, financial stability, and overall their emotional well-being. These things, having an abortion, not being able to have an abortion, is going to overall impact your mental well-being. It's definitely going to be affected by this type of topic. Some history on abortion. In 1920, the Soviet Union became the first modern state to legalize abortion. Abortion was frequently practiced from 1600 to 1900. And in the 1860s, many states passed anti-abortion laws, but often difficult to enforce. And in 1970, that is when abortion became legalized in the United States. But we see how quickly that, didn't take very long for that to be overturned, unfortunately. Also, a couple things that I learned throughout this process are that in different countries, they base the option to be able to have an abortion on different things such as cultural, legal, and religious values. In nations like the Netherlands and Sweden, abortion is widely accessible early in the pregnancy, prioritizing individual anatomy. In contrast, countries like El Salvador and Nicaragua, they ban abortion almost entirely, emphasizing on the rights from conception. Um, all different countries, different states, everywhere has their different rules. Unfortunately, some are a lot more enforced than others in different areas, and this potentially just makes it harder for someone to be able to get an abortion if they're in a restricted area. Also, the government. So, the second question I had asked on here was, should the government have the authority to regulate a person's decision to terminate a pregnancy? I definitely think this question is subjective, and depending on who you ask, you might get completely different answers, completely different perspectives. If it's coming from a government regulation, they'll argue that the state has an interest in protecting potential life and ensuring medical safety. However, if you ask a woman or someone potentially who will and can be impacted by these laws, we would argue that decisions about pregnancy are deeply personal and should remain with the individual as they involve, your body. And it doesn't make sense why anyone else should tell you what to do with your body. You can definitely seek that support from, doctors and, getting information about medical, but overall, the decision should be for you. A couple sources here for my bibliography that I have on here. I have a source. My first source is from Adam Cizik. Basically, his article was just talking about how abortion's been legal in the United States for decades, and the study just shows here that between 2001 and 2016, Americans' attitudes towards abortions have changed a lot. I definitely see that being a fact, being the case, just because of the different things that we are fed by the media, and just different perspectives overall. Um, Also, another one that I reviewed here was from Hoffman, JP, and Johnson, SM. This study investigates how abortion attitudes differ across religious traditions in the United States, whether those attitudes have shifted over time. What they went ahead and did was use a bunch of different surveys and religious literature to go ahead and basically just put that information together. The paper situates these findings within a broader cultural and historical context, examining the influence of religious media, position papers, and public events. Another one of my sources here is an article from. It's called "Abortions Are Up in the U.S." This is an article from April 17, 2024. So basically, this article just talks about the rise of abortion, um, the rise of increased reliance on abortion pills in order to be able to have that abortion, since Roe versus Wade was overturned in 2022. And it just basically just talks about how that law being overturned affected a lot of people, and the different ways that women have been moving forward since losing the right to be able to choose to have the abortion. And for my final artifact, I went ahead and wrote a letter to our Senator Gallego. So I will go ahead and read that now. It says here, "Dear Senator Gallego, I am writing to you as a concerned constituent and student to express my deep concern about the growing restrictions on abortion access in the United States and the serious consequences these restrictions have on public health, personal freedom, and the future of reproductive rights. Abortion is a complex but critical issue that directly impacts millions of individuals, particularly those who are low income, young, or living in rural areas. According to the Guttmacher Institute in 2020, nearly 1 in 5 pregnancies in the U.S. ended in abortion, and more than half of those who sought abortions were already mothers. When access is restricted, many are forced to travel long distances, delay care, or resort to unsafe methods, all of which increase the risk of medical complications and emotional trauma. Teens and young adults are especially vulnerable. Without access to abortion, teenage pregnancy rates can increase, leading to interrupted education, long-term financial struggles, and greater reliance on social services. As policies continue to shift, particularly following the 2022 Supreme Court decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, we are already seeing disparities widen between states with and without protections. In addition, young parents often face stigma, lack of support, and inadequate healthcare, all of which can compound the challenges they already face. Without abortion access, they may also be more likely to rely on public assistance programs such as Medicaid, food stamps, and housing support. The strain is not only personal, it also places a long-term burden on social services and public health systems. I urge you to support legislations that protect reproductive freedom and expands access to safe, legal abortion services for all. This includes funding for clinics, comprehensive sex education, and the protection of medical privacy. Reproductive health care is health care, and it must be treated as such, not as a political battleground, but as a matter of personal dignity and human rights. Please consider the long-term impacts of restrictive laws and take steps to support policies that are grounded in science, compassion, and respect for individual anatomy. I appreciate your attention to this issue and encourage you to continue educating yourself on the real-life consequences of limited abortion access. Sincerely, Khadijah Smith." And this will be concluding my presentation. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.